Hello, welcome back to the DraftCast. We are after game week 3 now, and we've got Will with us. How are you doing, Will?
Very good, mate. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, all good, my end.
I think we'll do our sort of usual things. Start with the league table standings as they are.
Yeah.
Maybe look towards the first game week of the El Presidente, and then we'll go over your segment, I think.
Works well with me. Yeah,
Hi, Rich. Rich is in the chat.
What's up, Rich?
That is true. You do have a very decorated avatar. 2
I
stars,
appreciate the
2
avatar,
cups.
by the way. Yeah, I like this. Fair play for the new designs, by the way. Big respect.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good. I like it. Right, let's bring up the league table, shall we? Okay. So we've got Adam on top this week, followed by Jim, Tom, myself, Ben, Rich. Quite a bit of movement this week. Some good scores.
Yeah, there's a lot of green going on towards the top, isn't there? There's a lot of reds towards the bottom, though, which is a little bit of... and, like, sadly for me as well, I've just got grey next to me, which just shows I'm completely rooted to the bottom, which is pretty upsetting, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I suppose we'll come on to that later. I guess we'll talk more in depth about that. But yeah, some movement towards the top, and just struggling a little bit down the bottom there, aren't we? Well, a few of us are anyway.
Yeah. Georgie's already counting the number of steps I've taken for the shots at the AGM. Working out who she's going to give out the drinks to.
Nice. Yeah, as Rich said, holding hands on the way up the table with him and Ben. To be fair, last year's sort of basement boys making their way up to the European places, so fair play to those two.
Yeah, I'm happy with my week as well. It's good.
Yeah, mate, the Champions League spot.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of movement in these first few weeks, though, isn't there? When, you know, Tom's had an amazing week last week, and then this week not so much, so he's sort of, you know what I mean, there's still that sort of settling going on.
Yeah, but you guys are getting like towards the top. I'm seeing some very nice scores here. 57 for yourself, 62, 59, 55. Anything sort of above 50 is pretty decent going, especially at this time of the season where you don't really know the teams yet because the managers are still sorting out their best 11s and everything like that. So, which is where I've fallen foul, I think. Nearly 100 points behind after like 3 game weeks. I might as well relegate myself, to be honest.
There's a long way to go, Will. There's a long way to go.
Yeah. As Rich says, consistency is key.
Yeah. I mean, Rich, 46, I think you're about average there, so if you can keep that up, you'll be all right.
To be fair, shout out to Rich. Like, the guy's done really well. Like, considering he's rebounded from last year, certainly an improvement from what we're used to seeing from Mr. Price. So, I don't know whether it's like a kind of inflation at the start of the season because there's a lot of points being scored by some pretty average players at the moment. Like, I think Adam's got Rafinha, who's been downgraded to midfield. Well, I suppose probably upgraded to midfield because you get more points for Leeds, who's been garbage pretty much all his life. And he started off getting like three or four goals to start the season, which he's scored in every game, which is just, I can't predict it.
I feel like there's been a few sort of upsets as well with the game so far, which is why it's sort of mixed everybody up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the whole thing is just,
It's great to watch, though, I think. It makes the game so much more interesting to watch.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like,
as more of a neutral, I'd say I'm more of a neutral in the group. So, although I follow Saints and we did well at the weekend, like watching the other games as a neutral is great. I think, especially when it's I don't want to bring it up with Rich in the chat, but when Brentford are beating Man United and then Man United are beating Liverpool, it's like what's going on? It's brilliant.
Shout out to Eric Ten Hag, by the way, as well. If there's going to be like a comeback king of the week, I think he deserves the trophy because he got humbled by Brentford, like pretty embarrassingly.
Yeah.
Then rebound, where I think pretty much all of us pretty much most of the football fans out there, if they were a betting person, would have bet Liverpool to win quite comfortably by 2 or 3-0, and then to see, United bounce back, and they didn't even fluke the win; they deserved the win. Like they absolutely dominated. So fair play, really nice goals. Rashford looked the best he's played for about 2-3 years, if I'm honest. So yeah, it was good to see. It's good to see.
I'm trying to think. I mean, Max, he's not had a great week there. It's close to the lowest score record, isn't he, of 16?
Yeah, Max. Sometimes the football knowledge comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although I think Jack's had a fairly okay week there, considering he's had 2 players get red cards so far this season already.
Yeah,
it's not a bad week. I don't think that's a bad week, 41. I would be happy with 41.
Jack's he's done all right, to be fair. Like, he had, similar to me, like a couple of weeks ago, well, I think it was maybe last game week, where his defence just lets you down massively. Like, mine week before, I think, what did I get? Like, -1 for Maguire, -2 for Digne, -1 for someone else, and like 0 for the other person. It was like, I don't even understand how that's happened. But sometimes you get those weeks, and like I say, it's probably 4 players that whole game that ends on minus points, and you have to have them all in your team. But that's just how it is, unfortunately.
All right.
The pigs flying at the top as well, which is good to see.
What I think I'll try and do is, this is a bit off the cuff, but I'm going to try and bring up the really rough picture I've got of the let's save that there for the groups of the El Presidente.
Let's have a look at it. Yes, it's the first week coming up.
Yeah. Right. There we go.
I'm a bit sad that I'm already relegated on this. I'm already in the bottom 2. What's going on here?
I feel like you've been done over there.
Again, yeah?
I don't know what he's done. No.
But yeah, some interesting groups that were drawn at the AGM.
Yeah.
I think the general consensus at the time was that the group of death was going to be Group B. I think whether that turns out to be the case, I'm not so sure now. I think we're basing it obviously on the last season's form because the new season hasn't started. But if anything, it looks like the tables might have flipped slightly. If you have a look at it.
Yeah, so I've brought the league table next to it as well.
Yeah, it's actually fairly even.
Yeah, I think there's now more of a mix, because I think when we did it, we were like, oh my god, there's like all the top teams from last year were in almost one group.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of thinking that, weren't we? We were like, oh no.
Yeah.
Right. It's a completely group of death, but when you look at it now, I think I think it's a pretty even split. Like I say, there's some decent point scorers in there. Obviously I'm probably more focused on my group, because that's the one I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I've got the pigs in there, Pesky, I suppose they're the big hitters at the moment because they're the top 2. But I suppose in the other one you've got Team Rowe, who's sort of there or thereabouts, who's always kind of like somehow lurking around there. But then you've got like your form players like Rich, Ben, yourself, hitting form at the right time for a cup week. So it'll be interesting to see how things go.
Yeah, I think like I said, like considering when we did this the draw, we were a bit like, oh my god, Group B is going to be really competitive. I think it's not so much the case anymore. I think that's because you've got Lawrence, yourself, Tolly. I mean, he's an 8th, so it's a good split between top and half, the top and bottom in both groups, really. So I would say Group A is probably just on the, but then you've got Adam and Jim in your group, so you could say that those two might run away with it, and then the rest, it could be competitive between the rest of you. And then
you expect them to. But
yeah,
I suppose it all depends really.
I reckon our group might be a lot closer than yours.
Yeah, like I say, it all depends on like literally the game week you have. Because I mean, I think most people, if they'd have had Leeds defenders or midfielders sort of this weekend, they'd have probably benched them. And then all of a sudden, Leeds go and smash Chelsea 3-0. Koulibaly gets sent off. You're like, not quite sure how this all works out, to be honest.
I know, it is mad. You can't write it either, can you? Which is great.
No. Also, I think we've only got one sole listener in the group at the moment, but for anyone's enjoyment, Bolton have beaten Villa, which is pretty, which is pretty problematic. So I'd like to get on a live podcast there, so we can remember this moment.
Was it after 11 minutes? Was they only just started?
20 minutes in. 20
minutes in.
So, sadness.
Yeah, there's a long way to go. I'm sure they'll bring it back.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, I think what we'll do then, Will, to try and take your mind off the game, is we'll move on to your segment, shall we?
Yes, sir. Yeah, some much needed relief, I think, from this.
Yeah. Right. Let's just set this up. I'm already screen sharing our overview, so that's good.
Cool. Brilliant. I'll just shall I explain what my segment is?
Yeah.
Cool. So, kind of going on from, I guess, last week's. Some might call it a segment, some might call it a debacle that was rolled out by Tolly in terms of where he decided to give star ratings to certain teams in terms of their defence, midfield and attack. What I've decided to do is try to give a more accurate representation by actually looking at the squad values in terms of every team. I've done it in reverse order, so obviously myself at the moment, sadly as I'm bottom, that means my team is at first. But so what I've done is I've broken it down into sort of defence, goalkeeper. I've set them just an overall price. Same midfield.
You've come up with a price then?
Yeah, so I've come up with a price, but it's based on sort of statistical information, and I guess like a high footballing knowledge as well. And this we'll give a total, then at the end we'll have a table to show who's got the most valuable team. At the end of or currently, who's got the most valuable team and who's got the cheapest team out there. So, that's sort of the layout of it. And as I hope it gives a more accurate representation than the star system that was given out last week.
Okay. Right, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was born ready. Right, so here we go. So we're starting off with myself, Gareth Northgate, obviously, and we'll just have a look at the defence, I think. So,
defence.
There we go. So obviously there's a lot of factors going into this, and just remember that the goalkeeper is included in here. So, I've valued up my defence as a combined total for the five at £100 million, which I think is actually quite conservative, really, when you've got someone like Edison, Ben White went for 50 million in the past. Aaron Webster went for 30 million. Gerhie's probably worth about 30 million now. Dean went for 30, and Edison's probably worth about 670 by himself. But I'm trying to do this on like realistic values, not the sort of inflated prices that we're seeing in the at the moment. So, I think a fair price for that defence in the real world would be about 100 million quid. And if we move on to the midfield, there's some talent in there. We've got Mason Mount, obviously, the one who jumps out. I mean, to be fair, I think my midfield is absolutely strong. I think there's lots of goals in there, but obviously they haven't clicked yet in the club at the moment. But for people like Christian Eriksen, who, he is still world class. I think that Bruno Guimaraes linked with Real Madrid. And Buendia is just a lovely footballer. So I've gone for a conservative 125 million, but across the board for midfield. And obviously Kane as a striker, 175 million. I think when you actually break that down, I think in terms of his actual true value, that's probably just what he's worth. I think if you're going to try to buy
Kane on his own.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think if you're going to look at his record, completely, like he's going to break the Premier League record. And I think if you're going to look at the past, if you're going to buy Alan Shearer at the time, I think in 1995, I think it was, maybe when he moved to Newcastle, 15 million. I think the equivalent value nowadays would be something like 280 million in terms of like the sort of price equation. So So really, I've kind of valued him at that amount of money, just because I think most seasons he's either top for goals or top for assists. He's just that ultimate team player. Plus, he's England captain. You have to put the England tax on there as well, which is a little bit of a frustrating one, but I think that's just the reality of it. And then if we have a look at the bench, we've gone for it's kind of conservative 100 mil, which is conservative when you think Wesley Fofana has been demanded for £80 million. Dennis just signed for 20 million. That Alvarez signed for like 30 or something like that from wherever they're signing from, River Plate. It's kind of a conservative amount on there. So yeah, then if we sort of add that up as a total, you got 500 mil. So yeah, Kane is just by miles and miles away the most dominant number on there. But he is, like I say, he's probably the best striker in the world, I think. So that's hence the reason why he's been given such a high score.
I'll let you have it for now.
Yeah, we'll work our way up. So if we look at Bow and Arrow, who's next up. So defensively, not as strong. 75 million across the board, which I think is kind of generous, really, because John Stones is getting on a little bit.
Yeah.
Nathan Ake is kind of like a really good squad player for Man City. So I think he'd be a really strong, good defender for most teams, but his value in terms of he's not an £80 million defender, he's probably like a £30 million defender. And this Christensen, don't really know a huge amount about him, to be honest, so I've gone conservative at 75. The midfield, 95 million I've gone for. I think there's some talent in here, namely from Jarrod Bowen and Smith Rowe. I think Smith Rowe isn't getting the game time which he deserves at Arsenal. But when you look at his sort of record over the past seasons, whenever he plays, he seems to score, get an assist. And plus, again, that English tax, which we talk about, hence with Jarrod Bowen as well. But if you look at the stats on Bowen last year, he was like in the top 5 point scorers, I think, possibly in the league. I might be correct on that, but he was certainly in the top 10. And no one would have expected that. So
no.
Big shout out to him. He's also in Max's #1 draft pick this season. Yeah, I think that kind of justifies the price for anyone which would be sort of questioning that. And then the attack, 65 mil. So sadly, Jamie Vardy is old now. He's like 35. He hasn't got the legs anymore. He hasn't got the pace. Kiefer Moore is just like a throwback to sort of 2002, where you could have strikers that don't run. He's just massive. It's a bit like a Kevin Davis sort of style, for those of you that remember him playing for Bolton. Danny Ings is kind of like, he's a proven Premier League goal scorer, but he's just kind of not really lit it up a bit at the moment, so hence his value's decreased. So I've given him 65 overall. And if you look at the bench, this is really where Max's value is. He's been hit by injuries, and Bobby Mahrez was a surprising one. We've got Ariel, who's the sub-keeper, who's good. I'd say Mahrez, Chalabar and Laporte, solid defence. So brings a total of 350 million for Bow and Arrow. So yeah, have to respect that. So fair play.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad score. Moving on to Team Bear, defence strong as always. Chilwell, Collins, Cody, and Anderson. I think I'm looking more here towards Chilwell, Collins, and Anderson. Cody is old, but also Nick Hope's a keeper as well, so you can't sort of miss them out as well. Midfield wise, 130 mil for Bear. You got Elise, who's class. Fernandez is obviously worth value. Raheem Sterling, worth some money. Anthony Gordon is being talked about at £60 million, which is bonkers money.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Gundogan, to be fair, is really solid. Like, he's been a really sort of good midfielder and probably is underrated by most people.
I think he's going to have a good season based on the few games I've watched of him so far. He could have a pretty good season, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's kind of like one of those players which kind of goes under the radar a little bit, Gundogan. Like, people don't put him in their draft team because they think, he's kind of like a classic centre midfielder, but he gets like 10, 15 goals a season, mad assists, but I think people are just scared of the Pep rotation, so fair play for Bear to pick him up. Then in attack, Callum Wilson, I give him 35 million as a rating, which I think is a good rating to give, to be honest, but he's just injury prone. Like, you can see there, he's played two games this season, or 3 games this season, scored, which is great, but this is kind of the problem I had last season. He's got that injury flag by all the time, where if he was fit, he'd probably be the natural backup to Kane at the moment, but he's just not. So, a bit of a shame, really, with that one. Defensively, I think it's a decent bench. So, I've gone for 80 million. We've got Sven Botman, who's a good, decent defender. You've got Brozier, who it looks like he's going to get a move, probably on loan somewhere. And you've got Calvert-Lewin, who is kind of a weird one. Like, should be getting more goals than he does, but he's kind of a one-trick pony because he's about 10 foot tall and he can spring really high, but he can't finish. So
yeah, he seems really injury-prone as well.
Yeah, like he missed a lot of last season. Like, I don't think he scored for like 8-9 months. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the injury is. I don't know if he came back from injury or if he's just sat injured with the same injury. I don't know, but it's not looking too good for him, to be honest. So, total of 345 million, so just a little bit less than Max's. But yeah, still pretty decent score, I think, from Team Bear there.
Yeah. Right then, Jack.
Cool. Move on to our further news. Yeah, defensively, like I am including Mendy in this, but I think the main value comes from having Mendy and Koulibaly in your team. I mean, obviously we want to look at his scores for this week defensively because that is not the strongest in there.
Yeah, I mean, Mendy had a howler, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm talking about Mendy and Koulibaly being his like most prized possessions defensively, but in reality, if you're watching for the first time Chelsea this weekend, you think they were a joke. Like, it was just an absolute disgrace, Mendy. Like, I don't know what Mendy was doing. It's not even funny, really, but I suppose none of us are Chelsea fans, so we can laugh about it. And Koulibaly came with this massive price tag and looks like the spitting image of what Rudiger used to look like, just kind of reckless with the ball. But he's obviously a good defender, but just all over the place. So, and Hickey is kind of like, we don't know enough about him yet. And yeah, Sanchez is kind of rubbish, really. So 60 million for that. But respect to the news midfield here, you've got Diaz, who's a bit of a live wire. Probably isn't getting the amount of goals and assists as he should do, but still not bad going. But Villa just scored from a corner, by the way. So just to shout that out there, direct from a corner. So well worth a watch on the highlights later.
Yeah.
Bernardo Silva, though, also massive respect for him. I think he is someone who we underestimate in the draft. I think as a footballer, I was surprised he wasn't up there with PFA Player of the Year last year. He was just unbelievable throughout. And I know Barcelona want to sign him, but in reality, they're not going to be able to sign him because they can't sign anyone without being able to register anyone at the moment. And Tielemans is a bit disappointing recently. Cornet, don't know if he's going to play that much. Now, Aronson scored at the weekend, but like I say, I don't really know the value in him yet because the goal he scored was the Mendy howler. So,
yeah.
So you know, one of those where you can say, I could have scored that. That's one of those which we could have scored, like, no question about it. And then his attack at the moment, Brennan Johnson, unknown. Nketiah has been around for a long time. Never really got nailed down anything, so yeah, 35 million for him, for those two, sorry. Bench, I've given him a good score for his bench, to be fair. I think Darwin, I think he's going to be a big flop. Can put that on the record now. I think he's going to be pretty average.
I mean, he hasn't started well, has he? Red card.
No, like,
red card in his first game.
Yeah, so like he scored his first game, but he kept on doing the same kind of like weird flick you do in the playground to score. Like, I don't know what it's called, but it was odd. And then like his second game in, he just got absolutely roasted by the Palace defender who just kept on treading on his toes, like pulling his hair a little bit, just little wind up things, and then he just reacted and just launched in with like a missile of a headbutt. So yeah, I don't know about that. And Kilman, to be fair, is a good centre half, and so is Romero. So yeah, 100 million for this bench, giving Jack a total of 310 mil. So yeah, respect.
All right, Tolly.
Onto the booze. Yeah, onto the booze here, which is a hard one for me to score because obviously after last week's slander where he was like giving Kane like a 2-star or whatever it was, I was hoping to give him like 10 million across the board, but when you look at his defence, the defence alone is worth some money. So Cancelo and Robertson are the main two. Yeah, I mean, most teams have paid 75 mil for both of them, though without batting an eyelid. Cresswell, Pickford, and Rico Henry are kind of like the add-ons there. He kind of went hard on those two players, but forgot about all the other positions in his team. But Cucurella, to be fair, like, again, pretty rubbish. He was dire against Leeds, but for some reason he's worth money. People want to pay money for him, but yeah, overall 150 mil in that defence, which isn't a bad score to get. But again, this is where he lets himself down. So you're in the field of Wissa, Trossard, and Aribo. I mean, that's not going to set anyone alight, is it? That is very, very poor. And let's move on from that midfield because it's not nice to talk about. And the attack, I've been really generous here, by the way, with 60 million because Antonio has blown out since like January this year. So since the middle of last season, he's just been pretty useless. He's kind of been found out as being a one-trick pony. So I guess the majority of the 60 million is made up by even Tony at the moment, who's got, I think it was like 12 goal contributions in 13 games. So yeah, pretty good going with that. So and the bench mostly made up by Richarlison. That Guedes is meant to be decent. Don't know much about the sister, whatever he's called, the kind of last bench. Not quite sure about him, but yeah, certainly Richarlison comes with his own reputation as a good striker and probably in the Prem. So yeah, total score 325 mil. So respectable for the booze. Like I said, I wanted to knock him down further, but no, you've got to be fair in these things.
All right, George.
Mr. George. Sadly, the defence is pretty uninspiring here. Got Jose Sarr, who, I suppose he's probably a good keeper. He's probably the best out of the bunch. Tomiyasu kind of just went missing last season. He started off so well, then just vanished into like some weird vortex. Never saw him again. Nico Williams and James Justin, again, they're not good. If you had them in your team, you'd probably bench them most weeks.
Yeah.
So 50 mil. Midfield, though, obviously the two on the left, the eye catchers, Phil Foden and Kulusevski, just really strong between the two of them. Hwang as well is a nice pickup. Doesn't start as many games as you'd hope, I think, for Wolves. And Jensen's kind of one of those weird ones who, again, isn't going to really, I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up in the agency pretty quickly. But at the same time, it gets you points. So has a little bit of value to him. So fair play, 115 mil. Attack, really strong from George, I think, in this one. Jesus is an absolute boss at the moment. I think only Kane is probably better than him in the league at the moment. Just really, really strong. Adam Armstrong, though, is, sorry, Luke, but he's probably about a £5 million player. And Sinisestra, we don't know a lot about him yet. He's come with a decent reputation. Not Sinisestra, Skamaka, sorry.
Yeah.
Come with a decent reputation, but hasn't done anything yet to set the world alight. And bench 60 million, made up of Kufal and Ape Nori and Rodak. That's where the value is. And yeah, so we can move on just to the total of 335 million. So we don't really. I don't really want to give any value to players which permanently have yellow flags and don't feature for their team. So we'll just move on from that bench player there. Yeah.
All right then, Rich.
Bruno Fernandes. So we're shouting Fernandes because you like to shout Fernandes in the chat. Strong D-line from Rich here. So Alisson was the number one goalkeeper pick this season, and a really smart one as well because he's going to start every game. I know Liverpool have been pretty rubbish at the moment at the start of the season, but we all know
they were like that last season, right? Didn't they have a pretty poor start last season? Fair,
Liverpool, Man City were kind of the same though, I think, from memory. They didn't dominate as much as they had done, but it's kind of where they sort of, when they hit stride, which is probably October, they both just win every game. Liverpool lost their first game since January, and which is just mental, when they lost to United. So pretty nuts. But yeah, and just going back to Richard's defence, Zinchenko was such a good pickup. I was screaming at my laptop when the draft day was on to get him, but he plays in midfield pretty much for Arsenal. He's such a good player, and Dunk is solid. We all know that. Cash is pretty much a regular in the Prem now, so yeah, interesting. But yeah, so good value there. Also, really strong value in the midfield. Obviously, Salah speaks for himself, and Odegaard, really underrated midfielder. One of those which kind of goes under the radar. It's not like an obvious sort of pick. I wouldn't have thought when we're doing the draft, but starts the week. He's Arsenal captain now. Gets goals, as you saw at the weekend. Got 2. And that Onana looks like an absolute monster if he can get fit. He, I only saw him briefly against Villa, but he came on, set up a goal, destroyed our defence, which isn't particularly hard, but he did. So I think there's some value in that midfield. Problem is the attack. Like, we see heavy areas in teams where we've got rich, like, midfield so strong.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the attack isn't the best. Ronaldo just isn't what he was. And Edouard kind of, does he play all the time? No. And the Southampton striker, again, we haven't seen enough of him yet. I think he had a decent assist the other day, but it's hard to sort of put value on that. And then the bench, 75 million, because we've got our boy Dan Burn on there, who's probably worth up a large chunk of it. We've got Ruben Neves on there, who's good. And Joe Willock let me down last season, so I'm not massively excited about him. But yeah, really good, really sort of fair score. I think 465 mil, which is really, really high value squad. So nice draft in there, Rich. On the defence team, Stone Cold Sean Dyson, which is a frustrating one to score because there's a lot of defenders on that pitch, and there's a goalkeeper as well. So 6 of his team come into this defence, but there's just a very uninspiring defence there. Ramsdale, I suppose, is probably the main value player there. You've got Thiago Silva, who's old. Tete, no. Perisic, I suppose, like, but he's not going to start that much. Plus, he's old as well. Trippier, to be fair, like, scored at the weekend, scored a really good goal, but he'll get injured at some point, as will Tierney. So you got to look at the longevity of the players, and 80 million is fair. But as with most things we've seen so far, he does have a really good midfield. Rashford's value has all of a sudden gone up from what it was like over a week ago, because he absolutely turned it on. It was really, really good. Obviously, the main one there is Son, one of the league's MVPs, probably one of the best players in the world. Like, him and Kane are just in a different planet when they play with each other. And so Maxman as well. So fair play. There's the kind of the add-on in the middle with De Silva, who we'll just kind of ignore for the moment. I've been really generous, I think, with this 50 million for Kai Havertz. He should get more than he does. Like, he's meant to be touted as one of these world-class wonder kids, but he seems to bypass that wonder kid stage now. He should be scoring more goals, and Chelsea playing with a striker, but it's not really working. But he's still worth value, so 50 mil for him. And look at his bench, 30 million. Sadly, it's a pretty miserable bench. You've got Firmino, who is playing for Liverpool now, but he is old and he is really, really poor. Neil Maupay is just, it's a no in terms of far as things go in that respect. And Roca, if anyone knows who he is, then give me a shout, because I don't know who he is. So I follow a lot of football. So 300 million as a total for Ben.
All right, on to me then.
To lose.
What's going on here?
There could be some violations here. So please get you off the pod. I have to say, I respect the spine of the team, though, with the Southampton core there. And you've even set them up, I don't know if you've done this intentionally, but literally through the core of your team with Walker Peters in the middle, Prowse in the middle, and obviously Che Adams at front by himself, respect. But defence, I was struggling here. David Raya, Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Carl Walker Peters, and Ben Mee. It was a hard score, mate. But 50 million, it's got to be, unfortunately. Then we move on to the midfield. This is where you claw some of it back, because the two main hitters in that, James Maddison, Ward-Prowse. Ward-Prowse especially, I'm a massive fan of. I think he's a really, really good footballer, and he's just Southampton's heartbeat of the team. So great respect for him. He does make a lot of value in that. Gross, if you were watching football for the first time for the last 3 weeks, you'd think he was Messi or Ronaldo of the prime, he's scoring in all the games, but we know it's not going to happen long term. Granit Xhaka, painful. And Ben Rama should be getting more games, but he just doesn't. So sadly, that's where the value lets you go down a little bit. And the Che Adams as a £50 million striker, I don't think that's a bad rating for him, really. If you're going to look in the current market, that's probably what you're going to get for him. I think
he's underutilized. I don't think he's, like, he'll come on and score, but then he won't start the next game. He doesn't seem to be given 100%. The opportunity properly, I don't think, to
100%.
But he hasn't replaced Ings, I don't think, either.
Absolutely not. No, I couldn't agree more. So Shea Adams was used to playing with Danny Ings up top, and they were both scoring goals. They were setting each other up and scoring goals. He's trying to recreate that, but him and Ings had something special. And like Ings was Southampton was Ings' club, so I don't know if we put a little bit of effort in. I don't know, but yeah, we haven't seen the output since he's come to Villa that we was doing at Southampton. And bench, you've been really unlucky, I think, in terms of your injuries, because I would imagine that pretty much, well, all four of those I think will be starting. I think you were really unlucky with dropping Martinez this week. I think it was the right thing to do, but also Martinez at the same time let in 3 goals for Villa. So you think he'd end up on sort of minus points or 0 points or 1 point, whatever. But because he saved a penalty, he was literally a one-man team. He got so many save points for Villa. He ended up on 10 points by continuing 3, which is just a weird one.
I know.
Which is, it must be painful to you to see that, but that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And obviously some really strong players on the bench for Inge. Bamford, Matip and Jota, when they come back, that's a strong bench. 240 million, so maybe a little bit disappointing, but it's just the way the current market is, sadly, in terms of valuations.
But I guess as well, it's, the draft, that's the beauty of the draft, isn't it? The value of the team is in actually what they're scoring, not in what they cost to transfer.
Yeah, 100%, because what we'll look at just at the end of the slide, at the end of the presentation, we'll have a look at the value of teams which are predicted, but then you can also look at which managers are managing on a severely under-budgeted team, position-wise. So at the moment, you've got probably the lowest budget team which I've given so far, but you're in 4th place, so that shows you're managing them well. So fair play.
Let's move on to Tom.
So we move on to the top 3 at the moment, which is kind of like Team Rowe is annoyingly always there. Like it's kind of like a bit of a rash. Like he laughs that he's in the top 3 all the time because he sort of doesn't want to know he's there. But defence-wise, super strong. So he's gone for the core defenders of City and Liverpool. He's gone for the heart of the defence. So he's gone for the Van Dijk and Diaz. And I don't know if that makes up the value of his defence, because Dean Henderson, there's a goalkeeper in there. We might see it more this season, but he hasn't played for a year. Yeah. Ryan Sessegnon started a few games last season. So hopefully he plays more this season. Castagna doesn't start all the time. So, but they having those 2 core defenders makes a real strong impact on that. Midfield-wise, De Bruyne is the obvious one there. Yeah. He's the one which is the money runner on that respect. But Eze, I think, is a really strong midfielder as well. The other 3 maybe need a little bit more work and a little more time to see if they're worth anything. So we'll see how that goes. Up front, though, goodness me, this is where it hurts. Arguably the lowest scoring attack that we've seen, £5 million, Danny Welbeck. Teams aren't going to be paying that much more for him, so it's fair to say Tom invested heavily in his midfield and defence this season. Yeah,
I like what Rich has just put. Team Rowe is the herpes of the fantasy football scene.
Absolutely, mate. I used to call myself that, like a bad rash that you can't get rid of. But seemingly they found a cure and I'm now bottom of the league. So I've always been eradicated, but we need to find one for Team Rowe because he's got a new strain which is very hard to cure. On the bench, though, again, equally difficult to price. I mean, if you're looking at De Gea, maybe I've been a little bit harsh on De Gea because he's been a really good goalkeeper over the years, but Martial, Dominic Solanke and Share again, like he hit a few bangs at the start of the season, but I can guarantee you he's not going to be doing that the rest of the season. So 330 mil for Team Rowe.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. So it's kind of like on average sort of 300 to 350 if you're getting that.
Yeah.
You've got quite a decent value in your team. Pesky, defence was hard to rate on this one, 70 mil. Kyle Walker doesn't play anymore. Well, he does, but not very often. Azpilicueta is old. He is very old, and he tried to get a move to Barcelona, but I think Barcelona just broke, so they couldn't register him. Gabriel's done well, though, and Lloris is obviously a World Cup winner. Tyreek Mitchell was a young lad coming through, so not bad defensively, but 70 million for that. Midfield-wise, Saka makes up the majority of this. He's probably like a 60, 70 million pound player. Zaha in real money is like a 25 million pound player, but he's not English, so he doesn't have the English tax added on. He plays the Ivory Coast now, so hence his values dropped slightly. And Damari Gray, like the start of last season, everyone thought Adamari Gray is like the signing of the season, signed for like £1 million, got like 5 goals in like 4 games, and was like, oh, what a player. But he hasn't done anything since. So flash in the pan. 95 million across the board. And attack-wise, this may be slightly controversial, but I'm not really giving any value to Mbremo. Mitrovic, in reality, is like a £10 million player. Haaland, so the comparison here is really Haaland to Kane, where I gave Kane 175, giving Haaland like 120. The difference being is that we know that Haaland has had injuries in the past at Dortmund. Also, the fact that he's brand new to the Prem. Pep's already said he can't play 3 games in a row, which is pretty alarming when you're like 21. Like when you're 21, you should be playing like every week, no problem at all. And if his hamstrings are already going, that means his pace is going to go. He's not going to play that much in the future. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's an unbelievable player, but I'm just worried about his long-term fitness. So that's my rationalisation in terms of giving him a little bit less money than Kane. Obviously, I'm sure when people watch this back, they will have a difference of opinion. And on the bench, 65 million across the board. Because Harrison is a really good player. He's in demand at the moment, as is Neto, linked with Arsenal. I don't know about the last one. Who knows? So, mystery players, I'll give them a value of 0 because we don't know who he is.
Fair enough.
360 million across the board. Yeah, 360. And now we come on to our current leader, which is the Pigs. So, strong defence here. I think probably the highest scoring defence, or one of the highest scoring defences I've given at the moment, which is 150 million. Really, really strong here. Keeper, I'm not really counting. Emerson Rell, I'm not counting. And Gomez after last night, which is his first appearance in like a year. Just not good. So his money really comes from Trent, James, and Saliba. Reece James, I think, is most valuable out of 3. Sorry. And Trent's just started off terribly. Like we've always kind of said he can't defend, but he really can't. Like he got destroyed for the first goal. And I think if you were putting him in any other team where he didn't have Van Dijk alongside him to mop up, he would be really exposed. But Saliba started really well. I think he's a strong defender and looks like he's going to be a Premier League player for a long time to come. So 150 million for them. The midfield, tough scoring here. Rodrigo, again, we were talking about flash in the pan. He is literally a flash in the pan. He started off so well, but it's not going to last. Dewsbury Hall, no, mate, not good. But Martinelli is really good, so that's where he adds up a bit of his money there. So 65 million for that. And the strikers, 55 million. I don't rate Watkins, but he's probably worth like £40 million in the market, possibly even a little bit more. And this Awuni, I can't say it, Awuni, I'm going to say.
Don't know.
Yeah, but he looked okay when he came on. He looked a bit of a Bruno China shop, like legs all over the place. But he did somehow manage a goal on his home debut. But that's to see. We'll see how it goes. Defensive, on the bench, 70 million, primarily made up of Ramsey and Sancho. Sancho's better than he is. He just hasn't played well for United in recent years, but he'll come good. Archer will be really good in about 2 years' time, but at the moment he's worth less value because he hasn't played that much at the moment. So that is all the team's individual scores, and what we're going to do is going to go in reverse order of the squad value. But this doesn't necessarily mean this is just your squad value. In terms of where you are in the league, I guess that's the real trophy at the moment. So if you have a really low value team, but you're performing high in the league, I think that shows where the evolution of managers this season, where maybe I need to adapt, because at the moment I've got a expensive squad, but I'm not getting a tune out of them, where other managers, so I'm basically like Steven Gerrard at the moment. I've got to spend loads of money on my squad, but they're just not winning. Where if you're towards the bottom of this and your team is sort of in the top 4 or 5, you're like Graham Potter. Doesn't spend a lot of money, but has an unbelievable way of getting the tune out his players. So let's have a look at the squad values. So in last place, we do have yourself, Mr. Headley. It's expected to lose at 240 million, but on the plus side of that, as I was saying, that means that you are currently 4th at the moment, which shows a really strong managerial expertise. Stone Cold Sean Syson, should be Dyson, again 5th with a low budget team. Very impressive work from Ben there. The Nudes, former champion, 310 mil, 9th in the league. He's kind of par with where he is at the moment, so not amazing, not great. The Boos are at 9th. So, yeah, similar, 325 million. He's currently 8th at the moment, so where you'd like to see. Annoyingly, Tom Rowe has got a lower value squad than his position at the moment. So he has got the 8th highest value squad, but he's 3rd at the moment. So that shows that he's managing his team well.
Yeah.
Moyes to men, exactly where they should be. They are 7th in the league and they're 7th in the value table. So that is a definition of a steady Eddie. He is Tony Pulis at Stoke, where they will finish 9th every year without fail. Percy Pigs, great shout to Adam at the moment. He is like the Jesse Marsh, the Leeds manager. He's got the 6th highest value squad in the league, so expect to be challenging for the UEFA Cup. But he is currently top and by a good distance as well at the moment, 14 points, so really strong from him. Good start. Team Bear struggling. He's got the 5th highest squad, but he's currently 10th, so it's not a great start for the Bear at the moment. So he'll be looking to improve his fortunes as we approach the Cup week. At number 4, Bow and Arrow will be really disappointed that he's not in triple figures at the moment. With £350 million worth of talent, he is currently 11th in the league, so there's work to be done for Max. Pesky is really where you'd expect him to be at the moment, 2nd in the league, 3rd highest squad value, so again a decent start. Good to see some investment this year though in the Bruno Fernandes from a managerial point of view. So despite not having the best record over the past few years, he has managed to sign some talent in his team, so he's got a high value squad, and that is kind of being reflected in terms of where he's 5th at the moment. If he wants to, I guess, keep improving, he will need to obviously get higher up the league to get that accolade of matching his team's value to position. So, but good start for Very Rich so far. And with the most expensive squad assembled is myself, Northgate. So in terms of a value point of view, I do have an extremely valuable team, which is great to see. Problem is they are not performing, which is very, very frustrating. Yeah. So there's going to have to be some harsh choice of words in the Northgate camp. We've seen a shift out of players. We've seen Harry Maguire go. We've seen Coutinho leave. Getting rid of a few of the bad eggs as such. So we saw United drop Maguire this weekend and they absolutely destroyed Liverpool. So, fingers crossed that happens for me as well. But that's where everyone's current squad values are. It'll be interesting to see later on what people think, if they think that is fair or not.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting reaction from people. I think it's pretty much there on. I think Rich should be happy with his team. I think that hopefully that should give him confidence that he's going to stay, in the top half maybe for the rest of the season.
Massive. I think he's been, let's say, definitely in terms of where we're at the moment, in terms of improvement, he is definitely up there in terms of improved manager of the season, along with Ben, to be fair, both of them, who are scrabbling at the bottom at the moment, now challenging for the Champions League places. So you cannot fault that at all. So massive respect to him and Ben especially. Obviously, last season's winner, the Boos, are kind of mid-table, but that's kind of how he goes, I suppose, isn't it? Like, he was kind of mid-table last season from memory, and then all of a sudden, the COVID sort of postponements happened, double games appeared, and then he kind of took advantage of that really well. In terms of past champions, Nudes and myself just not really at the races yet, especially myself. There's a lot of soul searching to do in the Northgate camp, but that will happen over the season, I'm sure. Yeah,
there's a long way to go, and I think you've got the value there. You might be able to do some potential trades to boost your team. So. Yeah, always open for trades, open for fair trades, as always. So if anybody has any fair offers they'd like to make for any of my players, please slither into my DMs and start negotiating. Is there any... I think that's a really good segment, something different than what we've done before, so I like it. And we'll have to see what everyone else thinks when they watch this back later, maybe. But Rich seems to think he thinks it's fair. He's hoping for a top 3 finish this season.
Respect to Rich. Drafted really well, performing. I think he's got a good chance of providing there's no sort of dark slithering into his DMs to steal his players. He's got a really good chance of finishing high up the league. So just really good that he's drafted really well, and it's great to see him performing well. So really good.
So I don't think we'll do. Last couple episodes we've done like a trade live, or try to get a trade going live on the pod, but I think we'll, unless there's anyone you'd like to trade with.
I think I'm kind of happy with my team at the moment. Stupidly, I just think I need to start clicking into gear.
Ooh.
I think
Speaking of trades, let me bring up my screen because I've got a trade in my inbox.
Slither in. Let's have a look. Mr. King.
Literally, as Rich said, all the stakes are out there. Don't worry. Look what's turned up in my inbox.
You keep fending them off, Rich. You keep fending them off. So let's have a look at here. Let's have a cross comparison. So, this is very poor from George, by the way.
I think this is very poor as well. Yeah.
This is going to be my final part of the pod to throw my 2p in here. So, Tomiyasu for Dyer. You think Eric Dyer's a bit of a joke, but he's actually a mainstay in that Tottenham team who keep clean sheets. So, actually, at the moment, that would be a downgrade for you.
Yeah.
Hwang for Maddison is a downgrade. Adam Armstrong for Diego Jota is a no-go, unfortunately. So,
yeah. I don't know what he's trying to achieve there, whether he thinks that I don't want to keep Jota because he's injured, when I drafted him injured, knowing full well he wasn't going to play for a few weeks.
You are being attacked there, certainly. You are being Pearl Harboured by George. So
yeah,
let's
decline that one live, shall we? Goodbye.
Get rid of it. We don't want to be seeing that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that satisfies our trading section.
Apologies, you had to see that as well.
I know. And you're right, George. He's trying to pull on my Saint strings, but I don't want more than 3. 3 players is enough.
No, you've already got a core of a team, so
I know. I don't need any more. That's fine.
Very, very poor.
Right. But I think we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the segment and a bit of a review of the league. And I think
it was great having me. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Cheers, Will. And thanks for watching, Rich, as you're the only one here. But as always, this is the DraftCast, and remember, draft is life. See you next time.